let's dive into one of the most famous scenes in all of literature.
Oh, absolutely.
Act 2, Scene 2 of Romeo and Juliet.
The balcony scene.
Yeah, Romeo's just met Juliet, right?
He has.
At the Capulet party.
Mm-hmm.
He is head over heels.
Yes.
And he decides to sneak into her garden, hoping for another look.
Well, and not just romantic, right? I mean, this scene is packed with ideas about love and identity and these societal pressures.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This would be great to talk about in a classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Romeo's in the garden, and he's going on and on about Juliet
Right.
as if she's like a goddess.
Yeah.
He compares her to the sun.
Uh-huh.
He even says that the moon is jealous of her beauty.
Oh, wow.
It's a little much, don't you think?
It's a lot, even for someone who's just met this girl.
Right.
But, Shakespeare is using all this imagery to set the mood,
Okay.
like a dreamy atmosphere, But he's also hinting at the intensity and the potential danger of their love.
Yeah.
Like the sun, right. It's powerful, but it can also burn you.
Right.
So it kind of foreshadows where their relationship is headed.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's the famous line,
Oh, yeah.
"Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" I feel like we've all heard that one a million times.
Right.
But I think she's saying more than just,
Oh, for sure.
I wish you had a different last name.
Absolutely. She's struggling with the fact that their families are enemies.
Right.
And their love is forbidden simply because of their last names.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's saying, why do these labels have to define us?
Oh, that's a good point.
Why
Yeah.
can't our love be enough?
That's such a good point to bring up in a classroom.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how much power we give to labels.
Mm.
Even today,
Right?
do they really tell us who someone is?
Yeah,
Or can we choose to look beyond them?
exactly. And that leads right into Juliet's next big speech,
Right?
that what's in a name
Yeah.
speech. That which we call a rose, by any other name would smell as sweet.
Oh, yeah?
Shakespeare's using Juliet to challenge the whole idea of identity and the power of names.
So she's basically saying that true love sees beyond those
Yes.
superficial differences.
Absolutely. That's powerful stuff for anyone.
Yeah.
Especially for young people trying to figure out who they are.
Right.
And where they fit in.
Exactly.
And remember, back then, family names and your social status were everything.
Oh, totally.
So for Juliet to defy those norms,
Yeah.
that shows incredible courage.
Uh-huh.
And that she can think for herself.
Yeah. I mean, it also makes you wonder, right?
Mm.
If names and labels weren't so important,
Yeah.
would Romeo and Juliet have ended up so tragically?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It shows just how destructive prejudice and hatred can be.
Right.
And sadly, that's still something we see today.
Oh, absolutely.
What if they just refused to let their family names define them?
Yeah.
Could things have ended differently?
Cool.
What does that tell us about the power of choice? And about challenging those norms that keep people apart?
Wow. Okay, so now we've got Romeo down below, listening to all of this.
Right.
Completely smitten, obviously.
Yeah.
But let's not forget,
Yeah.
he's in a pretty dangerous situation.
He is.
He snuck onto the property of his family's enemies.
Uh-huh.
Shakespeare uses this to show us the tension
Right.
and the danger surrounding their love.
Yeah. And Romeo even says, "My life were better ended by their hate than death prorogued, wanting of thy love."
Wow.
He's basically saying he'd rather die than live without her.
Yeah, that's intense.
That's dramatic.
very Romeo, right?
Yes.
It's just so blinded by love that he ignores the very real danger.
Right.
But then Juliet,
Yeah.
she seems so wise and strong.
Uh,
But she gets caught up in the moment, too.
She does, but notice how she shifts, right?
Yeah.
From all this romantic, dreamy talk to a more practical tone.
Okay.
She starts questioning Romeo, asking him if he really loves her
Yeah.
or if he's just playing games.
Right.
It shows that she's smart
Okay.
and mature.
Yeah, she's not just some silly teenager.
Right.
She knows what she's worth.
Exactly.
And she wants a real commitment from Romeo.
Absolutely. I mean, that practicality is a major theme here.
Right.
Shakespeare's showing us that real love
Yeah.
isn't just about, grand gestures
Yeah.
and poems.
Right.
It's about tough choices.
Okay.
Thinking about the consequences of your actions.
Yes.
Something even teenagers can relate to, right?
For sure.
We all face those kinds of decisions in our relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else I noticed in this scene? The way Romeo and Juliet use language is so different.
Oh, interesting.
Like, Romeo's all about the metaphors and,
Yeah.
dramatic speeches.
Right.
But Juliet's much more direct, down to earth.
Yeah, it shows their different personality. But it also kind of reflects what was expected of men and women back then.
Oh, really?
In Elizabethan England,
Yo.
Romeo's a young nobleman.
Right.
So he's supposed to be charming and eloquent, and Juliet's expected to be more demure and reserved.
So is Shakespeare, like, low-key challenging those gender roles?
He is. He's giving Juliet this voice that's smart and assertive.
Oh, I bet that caused some controversy back then.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
And it's something we can still talk about today, right?
Totally.
How do those expectations shape how we express ourselves?
Right.
Especially in romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Do they even still exist, or are they changing?
That's a great question, okay?
Yeah.
Another thing that jumped out at me is how Romeo uses all this religious imagery to describe Juliet. He calls her a bright angel, compares her to a winged messenger of heaven.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like he's worshiping her.
He is. Romeo puts Juliet on this divine level,
Yeah.
It makes his love seem even stronger.
Okay.
But it also hints at the potential for tragedy.
Oh, how so?
Well, back then, challenging religious beliefs was a big deal.
Right.
So by putting Juliet above everything, even his family and his faith, Romeo's taking a huge risk.
Right, and that kind of all-consuming passion can be dangerous.
It can.
Lead to bad decisions and ultimately heartbreak.
Exactly, and it's interesting. Juliet actually pushes back on that.
Okay.
Remember when Romeo tries to swear his love by the moon?
Yeah.
And she stops him. Oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon.
Right, like don't base your promises on something that's always changing.
Exactly. Juliet's wise.
Yeah.
She doesn't fall for empty words or fleeting passions. She wants a love that's grounded in something real, something that will last.
Yeah.
Even when the moon isn't full.
Right.
And this goes back to that theme of practicality we were talking about before.
I see. So Shakespeare's using language to show us their personalities and how their relationship is developing. You see Romeo's impulsiveness and Juliet's thoughtfulness, all in just a few lines of dialogue.
Exactly. And it reminds us that paying attention to the language can unlock so much meaning in literature.
Okay.
It's not just what they say, it's how they say it.
Now, we can't forget about the constant danger hanging over Romeo and Juliet.
Of course.
I mean, they come from feuding families.
Right.
Their love is forbidden.
Yeah, and Shakespeare reminds us of that through the setting, the darkness of the garden, the fact that Romeo's trespassing, and even in the dialogue.
Right.
Remember when Juliet says, if they do see thee, they will murder thee? That's a pretty stark reminder of what could happen if they're found out.
And then there's the nurse.
Oh, yeah.
Always interrupting at the worst possible moment.
Those interruptions are so clever.
Really?
Yeah, they bring us back to reality. Remind us that Romeo and Juliet's time is limited. It's like a ticking clock, adding to the suspense.
But even with all that danger, there's this sense of hope.
Yeah.
Their love is so new.
Right.
So intense.
Yeah.
It feels like they can overcome anything.
That's the brilliance of Shakespeare. He blends those opposing forces so well. Love and hate, light and dark, hope and despair.
Right.
And that complexity is what makes this scene so captivating.
It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, love can still shine through.
Absolutely. And it's a message that resonates with everyone, even teenagers going through their own struggles.
I mean, it's amazing how much Shakespeare packs into one scene.
Oh, it really is.
We've got romance and danger and family drama.
Yeah.
These huge questions about who we are and the power of love.
Right. And that's what makes this scene and really the whole play so timeless. Those themes are universal, They speak to us no matter who we are or where we come from.
And Shakespeare doesn't shy away from.
No, he doesn't.
How complicated those themes can be.
Right. He shows us that love can be amazing, but also scary.
Yeah.
That it can lead to both joy and sorrow.
He doesn't give us easy answers, does he?
No, not at all.
He gives us these characters who are flawed and passionate. And they're wrestling with the same problems we all face. And he makes us think about how even choices we make out of love can have consequences we never intended.
Exactly. Think about how Romeo and Juliet, keeping their love a secret, leads to their deaths.
Right.
It shows how important it is to talk to each other, to be honest, and to ask for help from people we trust.
It makes you think about fate, too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, were Romeo and Juliet destined to die? Or could they have saved themselves if they'd made different choices?
It's a question people have been asking for centuries.
Wow.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
But just thinking about these questions can help us understand things better.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the balcony scene, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first, remember that language is so important in Shakespeare.
Okay.
Pay attention to the words he uses, the metaphors and imagery, the way the characters talk to each other.
Right.
It tells you so much about them.
Like a puzzle.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions or to challenge what you think the play means.
Okay.
There are lots of different ways to read Shakespeare.
Right.
What matters is that you engage with it.
Yeah.
You think critically and you come to your own conclusion.
And remember, this scene is just one part of the story. Think about how it fits into the rest of the play, how it helps us understand the characters, and why things end so tragically.
And most importantly, remember that the themes in Romeo and Juliet, love, hate, family, identity, they're all still relevant today.
We can all learn something from this play.
Yes, even if it's a warning about how powerful and dangerous love can be.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Absolutely.
And keep the conversation going.
Who knows, you might even see a bit of Romeo and Juliet in your own life.
That's a great point. Well, on that note,
we'll
leave you to ponder those big questions.
Happy reading, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.